Reality Radio 101. Its advertisers and sponsors, or its listening audience. Listener discretion is advised. Good afternoon and welcome to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts Fred and Janet Cox right here on Reality Radio 101. To contact us live right now, send us an email. Our email address is liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, right to your hosts of the Liquid Green Health Show, Fred and Janet Cox.
What a sigh of relief, but it's a good one. Good afternoon, everyone. It's June the 11th, 5:30 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Had some technical difficulties right down to the last minute. Again. And I don't know why these things happen, but hey, we live in a world of technological advances, and we just got to live with the glitches.
I'm not going to blame Mercury.
No, I can't blame anyone but the computer itself. So we're here. Good afternoon.
No retrograde today.
No retrograde. To all our listeners and viewers across Canada, this is the Liquid Green Health Show. Welcome once again. Thank you for allowing us into your space. Every Sunday at this time, we have fun on air. We offer tips in an edutainment format designed to stimulate the mind and help bring us one step closer to living a healthier lifestyle. Right? All our broadcasts can be found on Spotify as well as YouTube. So right after the show, for those of you who want to, who want to listen or view it on any one of those platforms, you can go to YouTube or Spotify and just type in Liquid Green Health Show. Right? Send us your comments and everything, press the like buttons, whatever it is that you have to do. We just love it. You can also send us your email to liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. Please let us know where you're listening from. We love to get your questions and your comments. As a matter of fact, we had a few. One person wrote in, I think it came in today, asking if it was a psychological show.
Oh, okay.
The write-up sounds like that, but it's,
psychological if you mean the show is being run by a psycho, right?
No, that's not what that's not.
No, that's not what I mean.
That's not.
Okay.
So anyway, but and then we had a lot of requests as to, because we sent out our promo late.
Yes.
And quite a few people wrote in asking, what's the topic? Well, the topic is a very interesting one this week, today. And, it may sound like a psychological show, but it all ties into.
Well, there's so many, when we started discussing, there's so many branches of medicine that it actually fits in.
Yeah.
Biology, psychology, sociology. It's all intertwined, but just like everything else we do in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before we start that, what happened great this week? Great this week, I just thought of it. So, Apple and their newest launch.
Was it this week?
Is it? Yeah, it's early this week. They had the launch with that headphone device, the VR,
the virtual
reality.
Yeah, you got to get one.
I actually went to Future Shop about 3 years ago wanting to buy one of these. Or did we talk about this last week? Was it last week?
I think it was last week you talked about it.
But it's still on my mind anyway.
Yeah. So but I think it's a must-have if you are, if you want to get in with the times and you want to move along with AI and virtual reality. I think but the only thing it's a bit pricey. Knowing Apple, everything, the prices are all the way up there.
Wait until Android comes in with their version.
They are going to
for half the price.
Yeah. So last week also we talked about, and you said you wanted to.
Yeah, not last week, a couple of weeks ago. That show that still affects me dearly.
Yeah.
The one that said, "Why are we fat?"
Why are we fat?
And where everybody with resounding support agreed with you that we're fat because we open our mouths and we eat too much.
Because I spoke the truth.
And I thought, I'm not going to leave it there. So anyway, it got to the whole point. At this point, this show, I'm going to be in agreement with you and with our listening audience, because most of them agreed that we're fat because we just don't make the right choice.
It's all about making the right choices.
And some people will talk about genetics. And we were listening to this woman, a doctor. Did you have that clip?
No, I couldn't find it. But,
Dr. Cody, I think. Cody,
yeah, I forgot her
something
name.
Cody.
Yeah.
And
Sutherland, I think, or Sunderland. I don't remember that. But she was on CNN, and she made a statement that,
not CNN, on 60 Minutes.
right, 60 Minutes. She was on 60 Minutes, and a clip that I heard her saying was that
people are
fat because of genetic.
It's that they shouldn't be blamed because they're fat, because it's all about our genes.
Our genes, right?
And that you're predisposed, that if you have certain genes, of course, we know genes we inherit from our parents. And therefore, if you're predisposed to having some of these genes, then you're inevitably, you're linked.
You're going to get fat.
You have no choice. You become a victim.
Which I disagree.
That's what we're going to talk about.
I disagree.
Today.
Yeah. And I was surprised that somebody of her caliber would be saying something like that, because she should know better. Right. And so today we're going to be talking about genes, and it's all about, embracing the power of choice. So I wanted folks to get ready for a very exciting episode of the Liquid Green Show today, this Sunday, as we challenge the notion that we are just prisoners of our genetic makeup. Right. So prepare to embark on a thought-provoking journey into the genetics, the world of genetics, and its impact
and
on our lives, right? Yeah. And we're going to be talking about not just genes, we're going to be talking about epigenetics, which I really only found out about recently. Now, I need to give you a caveat, folks. We are not doctors. We are just, lay people who have a strong interest in health and health issues and health concerns. And so we, do our research, and we try to bring you what we have learned in a very layman terms, right? So we're not going to be getting into the scientific terminology and the medical terminology. We're going to be giving it to you exactly how we understand it, simple, in a fun way, so that you too could, garner some information and have a discussion on it. So that's basically what it is. Okay, so we're not doctors, so don't stone us. Okay, now, what are genes? That's the first thing we would like to talk about. What are genes, right? Genes are,
well, what we know is that everybody has
genes, and everybody has the same.
That was incredible. Right? Yeah. That was what I found out, that the entire human population from eternity, we all have the same genes except for 1%.
And isn't that funny?
It's incredible. Yeah. Just 1% differentiates you from me, from a Caucasian to a Chinese, to everybody. Yeah. It's simply
amazing.
And something else I found out that was really awesome is that not just 1% from us as humans that differentiates us, but from chimpanzees.
Yeah. That's why
humans,
right? That's why
a very small percentage that differentiates,
and that's why they're considered our cousins in the whole spectrum of evolution. So genes are basic physical function. It's a unit, right? It's a functional unit of heredity, and that's why we say if you have certain diseases or condition, it is because of the genes that you have inherited. They're made up of DNA, and they act as instructions to make molecules. Correct. Right? That's basically what it does. That's what a gene. And we have to look at it as the building blocks of life, right? Because they contain information for making specific molecules and proteins that allow human cells to function and do whatever it has. Okay, and they also lead to the expression of physical characteristics, the way you look, right?
So we're,
like
for example,
your eyes and
in
stuff like that.
My family, like for generations, they will look at our nose and they will say, that's a Bennett. Right. And they say, and it doesn't matter, my uncles, aunts, grandparents, sisters, children, they go, we are recognized, our trait is our nose.
Right, the nose. Right. And from most people of
Yeah.
African descent,
Mhm.
the nose is one of the main things that you can say, okay, that
And the
person
lips,
is an
and the
African.
lips, of
The nose
course.
and the lips,
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
person is an African, has some kind of African blood in them, right? And then we have chromosome, okay? That's another part of the whole genetic made up, right? This is a string of DNA that's wrapped around proteins
Mhm.
that they give, uh, they can be translated from the DNA, and the DNA can be replicated. So what the way I look at that, it's like one example that we saw is like having a marshmallow,
Mhm.
right? And this thing wraps around the marshmallow and it sends the signals all over the body. That's my understanding. My
Right. Yeah.
understanding, right? Um, Chromosomes allows population to evolve over time in response to the environment in which they're in.
Mhm.
Okay, and
So if I can break that down a little bit, what the way I understand it is that each chromosome, each chromosome, it carries a part of that code. We
yes,
know that it's the genetic code. We know about a computer. We just talked about Apple and the coding that went into making that new microphone. It's system,
right.
right?
Mhm.
So we know about coding for computers,
Yeah,
computer programmers. It's all about the codes. And I think there is a universal code. You and I were talking about that. There's a universal code in life
yes.
for the universe.
Mhm.
And I think we were discussing the similarity between the human body and the entire universe
It's very
and
similar,
how
very, very similar. And
the coding system
everything that is in the human body, the makeup of the human body, is a
is in the
direct
universe. Right?
replication of the universe.
Yeah. And
Right.
the interesting thing about genetics is that it's relatively new.
Yeah.
But it's only about 60 years old that they've started studying. And then the scientists, what I realized, it's one of the biggest collaborations in the entire history of science was a collaboration of what they call the what's it called? The human genome, it's called the Human Genome Project,
Okay.
which involved
That's what
over 3,000 scientists, 20 universities,
wow.
right? Only 20 volunteers that had to give their samples.
Mhm.
But through this, they were able to unlock the entire sequence
Okay.
of genes and
Of
how they
genes.
work. And because of that, there's so many other inventions, like in terms of how we care for ourselves in the healthcare system,
Mhm.
all because of what they discovered with the,
Yeah.
with the gene.
Now, for our
Right?
listeners out
Mhm.
there, some people might be wondering, like, what does this have to do with health,
Yes.
right? But it plays a very important role when you understand the importance that the genes play. You understand the importance of and the function of the um, what's it the genetic code,
Mhm.
right? You understand what those things do, then you have a better understanding as to why we get sick
Exactly.
and why we get certain types of diseases
And what we can
and
do
what
about them.
what we can do.
Yes.
And believe it or not,
Mhm.
we have the capacity to avoid a lot of these ailments by just switching off certain
Yes.
things.
And you know
body. And
what?
that's what we're going to be talking about.
With cancer, that's one of the areas, cancer and dementia. How do we treat cancer right now? We do
Lots of
chemo,
medication, chemo,
radiation.
and all kinds
So
of stuff.
now with the study of the genes and the whole genetic processing, what they're trying to do now is not just to kill the genes,
Right.
but they can turn off, they
Ah,
can turn on, and they can turn off some of the coding.
Yeah.
So they can reprogram these cells.
right.
It is so
Now,
fascinating.
some people may say,
Right?
based on what you just said, some people may say,
Yeah.
okay, that's tampering with our genetic DNA.
Yeah.
But yes and no, in a sense.
But it's good tampering.
It's good tampering,
Right?
right? Because you have to do certain things. You see, as man evolves,
Mhm.
right, science will evolve, right? And as long as we are part of the universe, we will always be searching. We will always, our
Yeah.
minds and
Mhm.
our ideas will always be expanding because the universe
Mhm.
expands. And as long as the universe expands, your mind will, and science will. And, we just have to learn to sometimes trust science
Right.
Okay, because it plays a role. It plays an important role in everything in our life.
Yeah.
So we just have to trust it sometimes. Okay, and so that
I was going to say something. I forget. Go ahead.
so our topic today, all right, is basically touching on the a science that part of science that I only found out about probably in a week or so. Like heard about it. I might have heard about it before, but never paid attention to it, right? And that is epigenetics.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
What is epigenetics? So that's what our show is going to be about today.
Okay.
Genetics gives us the ability to make choices.
Right.
Right.
And because we were talking about genes and what the scientists did in terms of the genes. The process that they worked on through that project was gene expression.
Yeah.
And it's, as you say, we're not doctors, so we're not going into the science. I wish we had a doctor to talk about it.
Yeah.
But basically, my understanding is that there are cellular molecules, and then these regulate the genes, right? And they often work by activating or deactivating the proteins,
Okay.
right? Which contract or they expand the chromosomes. And we know about chromosomes. Every human being has 46 pairs.
46 pairs, yes.
Because we get 23 from each.
Yes.
From each parent.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the chromosomes with the X and the Y's.
Yes.
And the way it works. So in very simple terms, then, it's the whole system, the whole genetic system is simple. It's simple from a layman's term because it involves 4 different letters. Right. And these 4 letters that are used to name each code, right? They're 4 letters. And I wrote it down, and it said they are, what are they? We're just going to name these, and we're not going to go into what they are necessarily, right? But it's adenine, so it's A, thymine, cytosine, and guanine.
Okay.
So it's ATCG. Okay. And those 4 letters are replicated in billions. Right. Billions and billions, they're repeated. And how they are structured, how they're grouped together, one groups with the other, one with the other, that's what we're not going to go into. But how they're structured is what gives us the traits. And that's how we're going to get into the epigenetics, which is what the content of this show is.
Okay.
Right. So epi, as we said, means
above.
Above. Right. So what is it that is above the DNA. Our DNA, above our genes, that makes us who we are. That give us our specific identity. Right? So what is epigenetics?
Well, according to this, for the lay person out there, it's basically it's understanding what causes disease, right? No, that's not what it is. No. Hold on, I have to go through.
Okay.
Right. You want to go through that?
Okay. Epigenetics is basically it's understanding that lifestyle and the environment can have a significant influence on the genes, on how genes are expressed, right? And basically, our genes give us, as we were talking about the chromosomes, we said we have so many pairs given to you by your mom and your dad. But how does that change? How does that change? And it changes because of this thing called epigenetics. So what is it? It's that genes are hereditary, but through epigenetics, it changes and we can evolve into our own distinct human beings.
Okay. Right? What does it have to do with the environment that we're in?
So a baby,
right?
Let's take a mother. A mother is pregnant and she is drinking, she's smoking, she is probably taking drugs. She's not well taken care of in terms of what she eats. So her nutrition is bad. When that baby is born, the epigenetics are going to be changed. The epigenetics for that baby is already given, and it can last for generations. It's given through that mother. But if they change, if that mother is in a different environment where she's actually taking care of that child, the embryo, okay, because the markers are given from the sperm and the egg when they come together, right? That's where the coding is implanted. And therefore, if that environment is changed, then she will give birth to a child who will not have those detrimental characteristics from birth.
Okay.
Right?
Now, I was looking at something yesterday and today.
Okay.
And they were talking in the same line of epigenetics. They were saying that depending on the environment in which you're in, right, you can make it will affect your condition, right? Am I saying it right? Is that yeah? Because the area in which you live, and it doesn't have to be a physical area. Okay. It can be an emotional area in which you're living presently. Does definitely have an effect on various health conditions.
Of course, definitely, because what basically epigenetics does is to study the factors that influence the expression of the genes, right?
Okay.
For example, there was a doctor, I forget his name, but he used to teach medical students about genes. And then he had a culture that he had the exact same, same genes.
Right.
And what he did was he started growing these cultures in the lab.
In the petri. Right.
And what he discovered was that when he used the exact same genes and he changed one factor. So he changed one factor in the environment, and those genes became, instead of they expressed as bone,
right,
he changed another factor, and those same genes grew into different tissues, fatty tissue. He changed, and they grew into muscle, and they grew into skin. So what we're learning about with this whole thing is that
that's where the environmental thing comes in. That's what I was trying to explain. It's the same gene that he's taken from the original source, and he's placing it in a different environment.
Yes.
And based on that environment, it will manifest
into different
things.
Right.
And that is why
it's like stem cells.
Yeah. And that is why we have the ability to switch on and off the condition in which we're in, so that we can avoid certain types of ailment. And that basically, that is
it's new
in a nutshell, it's epigenetics.
Yeah, it's new technology, because I mean, this only started, as I said, 60 years ago, and the big project, etc. But it's like the beginning, and they have so much to learn.
But if that's the case,
coding, right?
If that's the case, and you and I had this conversation, there are millions of people right now that are living in conditions that are not favorable for human for human dwelling. Brazil, parts of the Caribbean,
all over the world, America, everywhere,
wherever you have people living in squalling conditions, right? How is it then that they cannot make that change?
Okay,
you and I had this conversation today,
and this is where this show becomes psychological, because
if they know that they can make the change,
but they don't know. This is new. A lot of us do not know our circumstances. For example, come back to the whole thing, why are we fat? A lot of people just think, oh, my parents were fat, what can I do? Whatever I do, it's not going to change anyway, because I was predisposed, I have these genes, and that's what my life is. So unless you know, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So if people don't know that they can, in fact, change their circumstances, then they're going to be stuck.
But
And
people,
that is what we were saying. And you were saying, so if you're really poor and let's say you're in a part of India where the majority of the people in one of these villages, whatever, how do they get out? How
right?
can they
How
break
can you get out?
through
Because it takes a
Mhm.
it's a challenge,
Yeah.
right? And it comes back. It's a combination of spiritual understanding. It's a
Mhm.
combination of a determination to want to get out. It's
Mhm.
economics, spiritual economics, and that desire to want to get out. You
Mhm.
may have the desire, but you probably won't have the means. Because
Okay,
right here in North America, it takes money to get out of poverty,
that's right.
right? It takes money to improve your credit rating.
Yes, but then you might have you might have the money, you might know what to do, but unless you have reprogrammed your mind that this is what I want to do,
But that's
and
easier
then
said.
you will find the ways
But
in
that's
which to do
easier
it.
said than done because we know now we know that from the mind is fully programmed by the time you get to age 6 or 7, fully programmed,
Yes.
right?
The formative years,
Yeah.
correct.
So
Mhm.
anything that you live after, excuse me, your life after the age of 6 or 7 is determined by that programming that you have been given,
Mhm.
right? From your parents, from society and everything. So when you get to a state in life, when you're 40s and your 50s, it's a very difficult thing to want to reprogram the mind,
Mhm.
right? And that's where a lot of ailments would have already started taking place in your life
Mhm.
that you only recognize it when you get to your 30s and your
Yes.
40s.
Yeah.
And then what do we
But the
do?
body
We
is so
go,
amazing.
yeah,
It can't
but
change.
then we turn to medication,
Mhm.
right? We turn to the medical world for help. Most people turn to the medical world for help, when in fact, if they understand the workings of epigenetics,
Mhm.
those changes can be made because it's just a matter of turning off, changing the molecular structure in the body by giving the body the nutrition.
Yes.
And that's the environment now.
And this is where it comes in with the hormones, etc. The
Yeah.
human body is so amazing. It is so miraculous, honestly, because it's the chemicals within our bodies that make
Yeah.
these changes.
Yes.
So if you have said something in your mind that this is what this is what I want, there is a chemical process that actually takes place, and the cells understand this chemical
Yes.
process, and it's the cells that will actually do the work.
Yes.
So you just have to make the commitment, and the body takes care of itself through these chemical processes.
You have to go
right?
to the source that governs the cells. And the source that governs the cells is the mind. I always
Correct.
come back to
Yes.
that, right?
Yeah,
Because
it seems all our shows we end up
a
saying
lot of people don't
over and over,
understand
right?
that.
Mhm.
The governor of the cells is your mind.
Correct.
And when you reprogram the mind, the cells react accordingly.
Right.
Right? And
Yeah.
that's how illness is
Correct.
conquered,
Yes.
and the body,
We're
lives
on the
accordingly.
same page.
Okay.
But there are other examples. For example, they say pollution, believe it or not.
Mhm.
Pollution is a significant focus that the scientists are researching because of the tags it has on our DNA. Believe it or not, air contamination, I couldn't believe this when I read it, has links to an increased risk of neurodegenerative disease. Well, that we knew. But the studies have also found that B vitamins might protect humans from the harmful effect of air pollution. So that's one.
Right.
Food, that's another one. Food is also thought to have links to epigenetic change.
Yeah, because food is nutrition. And if you eat the wrong type of foods, you're not going to get, the cells are not going to get the nutrition that is needed to make the change. And
sorry, go ahead.
There's another thing here. Biomarkers used in epigenetics are thought to be stable, dynamic, and modifiable. Right?
Right.
They are modifiable. They can be changed by what? By the lifestyle and the environment. And that example that you gave with the doctor that moved the cells from one environment into another, and it made a thing. So it is becoming apparent, they say, that epigenetics works inside the womb and outside the womb. That is why it is important for a mother that has that is pregnant to speak to that child.
Of course. The music,
The
the play,
music, yeah.
all of that can be influenced by the in vitro experience, right? But I was talking about food, and it says if you were to consume a diet that is a good diet that has fats, the adequate amount of proteins, low carbohydrates, then guess what? You will experience a surge in an epigenetic agent which is produced by the body.
Wow.
So, right? And that's the whole area of this study is called epigenetics.
Okay.
Can you imagine the entire thing about food is being studied?
And that has generated a lot of interest in recent years, because scientists have found that, as you said earlier, the diet can modify the whole tags, the epigenetic tags, and there's a lot of research that's going on.
But look at GMO.
Right, that's a good example.
Yeah, look,
it's a perfect
like
example.
GMO, what is it? It's genetically modified food.
Yeah.
And how does this work? What they do is they try to get the genes from one plant or from one thing to another, and then they try to blend or to mix and to create a new organism using the blend of the two different types of genes. And of course, when they started, they didn't start out to make something bad, right? They thought they were doing something good. But then we know about GMO foods, and I think the studies are not complete in terms of what the effects are going to be.
Right, because we don't know.
That's why the concern.
Right, that's a big concern, and that's a whole different topic, because there are a lot of people, self-included, who I don't think much in terms of the benefits of GMO, the consumption benefits of GMO. Right, I don't like to.
But this topic is interesting because when you think of how genetics are used, some of the things that they have used in terms of solving crime.
Oh, that's
right. In terms of solving crime, we listen to some of those stories, and it's amazing. One lady went to there was an example of somebody who went to, I think, Ancestry. What's it called? Ancestry.com?
Yeah, 23andMe. They have Ancestry.com. They have 23andMe, and there's another one I don't remember. But she went to one of those banks and deposited her DNA.
Yes, because that's what they do.
Yeah, because she wanted to find out, okay, what's my ancestry? Yeah. And she did it, just for her own appeasement, only to find out several years later that it played a significant role in capturing and prosecuting a murderer.
Because the ancestry, what is it? Ancestry. Where am I?
You're talking about the chromosome?
Yes. Ancestry.com and what is it? 23andMe.
That's a private. These are all private. You got 23andMe. That's a website where they allow customers. They allow customers basically to learn about their genetic makeup. So the customer wants to know. They put in an order, and they get a kit, and they send a sample of their saliva, right? And then the website, they use it for genetic typing, genotyping, to detect or select variants of the DNA. That's basically what it is.
And also a very good thing with it for health risks.
Yeah.
If you right now, you could go and do a test, a genetic test, and that will tell you, it will tell you if
you're predisposed
to cancer, to Alzheimer's, or any other dementias, to diabetes. So would you do one of these tests?
I don't know. Yes and no. I don't know. It's a 50-50 thing. But the good thing about it, if you did it and then the results came out that, okay, you're predisposed to this or that, then you know how to
How to
You have
rearrange
choices.
your life.
Yeah, because you
Mm,
can rearrange your life. Not because you've been diagnosed with it means you have to die from it.
Right.
Right?
For example,
Because
I really
hold on,
wanted
because
to.
once you've been diagnosed with something like cancer or any one of those, autoimmune diseases, it drives fear into you. And fear can cause a whole change in how the cells behave in the body.
That's right. It goes back to the chemical reaction.
The chemical reaction in the body
actually makes it worse.
changes.
For example, if somebody were to have cancer and they were to say, do you know what? I don't have cancer. And they live their life as if they don't have cancer. I believe the thing would change.
You could beat it. Yes, you could beat it.
As not just saying it, but doing what you need to do to counteract the fact.
Yeah.
And I think that's how a lot of people survive these kind of critical diseases.
And the same thing goes for things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. I don't think you can stop it completely, but I think once you know, you'll be able, you'll do things
differently
to mitigate the damage as you go on.
Start eating more coconut oil. Like I know, I don't know yet. I'm gonna find out exactly how. I think OHIP in Canada, we have the Ontario Health System that I don't think it's free, but I think having done this research, I know I definitely want to do the test for Alzheimer's. It's already in our family.
Yeah.
But again, with my mom, it's not, thank heavens we found out it's not hereditary. Because if it is hereditary, if your folks have Alzheimer's, chances are half the children will.
Yeah.
Right? So the fact that it is not hereditary is great. And I'm going to do that test.
Okay.
And I'm going to let my kids know the result.
With that said, listen, an hour goes very quickly. It's after 6 o'clock already. And we have quite a few emails that I want to get to some of them. Here's one from Joyce and said, Joyce says, the only smoke that I smell, she's talking about the fire. Okay.
Oh, the fire still going on, right?
This is the only smoke that I smelled over the last few days, and that's a picture of barbecue. Okay, I hope you enjoy it, Joyce. Enjoy that one. Here's one from Brian, and he says, hey, that's hey, the studio at Liquid Green.
What's that?
I don't know.
The lab.
Oh, that's a lab.
Yeah,
okay.
With all the scientists, right?
Okay, Brian. Choices. Here's another one here. That's from Beth, and Beth says, Cox says, our choices are everything in our lives that affect our health. Make the right choices. And she sent us 2 pictures. One beautiful salad, and the other one that looks like fried chicken. Well, guess what? I like both of them. So sometimes I make, either or choices. We like the show today, and the genes are the code of life. Hey, from Honolulu, Hawaii. And this is from Olivia. Thank
Hawaii.
You. Yeah, thank you very much. Way across in a different time zone. Thank you very much for that. And here's another one. Happy Sunday to you. Genetics do in fact play a very important role in life. You can get genetic testing, but when you do that, the doctors first always have to talk to the genetic counselor, just in case they may find something.
And that's what we were talking about. Yeah. That if you do find something, does this mean it's the end of your life, or do you use it proactively?
You got it. Yeah.
Right. And if you use it proactively, then it's a good thing. Yeah. If not, it's terrible.
That beautiful email was from Macon, Georgia. And it comes from Donna. Thank you very much for that, Donna. Here's one from Jill. Hello from Toronto. You should really contact a specialist on this topic. That would be amazing. This conversation can really help a lot of folks regarding disease. Good shoes. Okay, you meant good shows today. Good show today. Thanks so much. Thank you very much,
what, Joe? What we're going to ask, we're always looking for guests, and we're going to take you up on that, because I do believe it's a topic where it needs to have.
Yeah, it needs an expert. Because
the expert help.
There are a lot of things that we saw it. We did the research, but we cannot talk about it, folks. Because,
on that level, that we like to, right?
Yeah, because we're not doctors, and we don't want to give out information that people will take and say, we heard it on the Coxes, okay? So that's the reason why we're avoiding saying certain things.
But you know what?
It stirs an interest, and that's what I want. And here's Joe again writing. He says, hello, Fred and Janet. Certain races are more prone to specific diseases. Learn about your ancestry, and that's pretty good.
But you know what? In order to get your genetic testing, for example, I think when you go into some of those, you can actually put in if you want to be connected, like if they have found other family members with similar traits,
Yes.
depending on how many of those traits match, you could find a relative as close as a mother. They have used it over years to find adopted people, to find their birth parents.
Yes.
And we have seen cases where they've found mothers, sisters, cousins.
Look at the case. I think
right?
we were a couple of days ago, we were looking at a video where this woman went to, it might have been an ancestry,
23, one of them.
23andMe or one of them, and she ended up finding her sister,
Right.
which was good.
And the cops are happy.
Oh, they're happy. They love this. Monica, I'm not going to read yours. No, because you're telling me to stop eating those Oreo cookies. Monica, I have to tell you, I have not eaten an Oreo cookie in months.
And guess what? That is absolutely true. He has switched from Oreo cookies to cookies with oatmeal and raisins.
Yeah, they're nice.
So
I'm getting up there, Monica. I'm getting up there. Thank you very much. So, folks, you're listening to the Liquid Green Health Show today, Sunday, the 11th of June, and we're discussing a topic that has created some interest among us, and we thought it was necessary to just give you a snippet to let you know that there are other ways in which you can counteract some of the conditions that you may be facing in your life, and that is understanding the genes and this new science that is being talked about now, epigenetics. And you're listening to us on Reality Radio 101. Okay. Sounds like it's a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
One of the things that we found out is what do you call it? Not genetic babies.
The designer baby.
Designer baby.
Oh, okay.
Right. And this is something that is being used. Designer babies, they refer to the concept of genetically modifying embryos to produce an offspring with specific traits. Now, is that good or bad?
I think it's like everything else, it depends.
Yeah.
Let's say you knew that you could put the code in so you wouldn't have a baby that was going to born with a specific birth defect, right? Then I think if you could eliminate it, because that's what science is all about.
But that's a dangerous.
Science is all about trying to make living
making life better. But it's how it's used. It's how it's used after.
It's the ethics that come in,
right?
Like, I'm sure that lots of people who have babies who are not perfect, are not when I said you have to be so careful, not physically perfect or mentally perfect. They don't want to get rid of these babies.
No.
But would you have made a choice if you could have that you would prefer to bring a child who is
knowing what you know now, that child is alive? There's still a lot of love. You love the child.
Yes.
But look at the challenges that you're facing.
And would you have chosen differently if you could have? Right. I wonder what that would be, because some people will say, oh, I love them just the way they are.
Yes.
But I don't know. I think I'd probably want to know.
I don't know if I can live with that. But this is something that's been going on. It's new. This is done through the process called germline. Germline, right? Or germline. Is that the right pronunciation? G-R-M-L-I-N-E, germline.
Not sure.
All right. Engineering.
Okay.
Right? Which involves altering the DNA of sperm or eggs. This technology has been used a lot among the animal species, right? It is still in its early stages, not yet widely available. However, scientists have already used gene editing techniques like CRISPR to modify the DNA of human embryos in the lab. So you see where they're going with this.
Yes.
Right? You see where they're going with this. And some people say, oh, they're trying to create a super race or superhumans.
Well,
right?
it
You're going to
was
get
done
the
in Germany.
conspiracy. You're going to get the conspiracy. Yeah.
In Germany, that's what Hitler did, right?
Well,
Trying to,
I don't know if he was successful, but that was his
successful,
mindset.
but yeah, that was to
Right?
make the super race.
Yeah. So you can see there are going to be a lot of conspiracy theories around this, but let's see what happens. But folks, this is what is happening in the future. This is it's being tested now, but in the future you're going to have this kind of stuff.
Because take identical twins,
Mhm.
or as Mrs. Remy, who was on with her identical quadruplets.
Yeah.
Hi guys, if you're listening, we basically, like, in the beginning they're identical,
Mhm.
but when they grow up, they're not going to be the same. They're going to be influenced depending on their lifestyle, depending on how they grow, where they live, what they eat, their interactions with other people.
And that's
They-
the epigenetics
Yes.
that's taking place.
Right.
Because
So
even though they may look alike, there are certain
because of epigenetics,
characteristics.
it will change.
It's going to change. Right.
Because the genome and the epigenetics, they cannot exist separately. So things like stress,
Some of them will be able to handle stress better than some. Right.
and it's all about your epigenetics, and you, which, as we said over and over, is something that we can change. Right. Now, something you and I also talked about, if this can be passed on for generations, we just hypothesized, and we said, you know what, take the whole thing about slavery.
Yeah.
And the trauma, the stress
Right.
that came with that.
Right.
And if those genes are if those
Embedded,
markers are embedded,
yeah.
and it can go for generations. For example, your chromosomes, from the first generation, you get 50%.
Right.
The next generation, you get 25%. The next generation, it halves as it goes along.
Yeah.
So for the generations, like they said, your genes never forget.
No.
And
it's
I
a
wonder
memory bank.
if today, is that a talking point?
And
again, I would love to get a professional on.
You know what?
Who would be able to discuss this with us.
You know what? I'm glad you touched on that, because the genes in all living things,
Right,
is the master recorder.
that's right.
It records every single thing that it has been taught over the years. And that is why from generations down, people are affected, right? Their behavior is a certain way because those genes have been passed down from generation to generation.
Yes.
Okay. The cells record and they react based on the information that is given to them from the government of the cells, the governor of the cells, which is the mind.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, concluding, our genes, when they're not set in stone, right? We can positively impact our lives.
Yes. If you
through
understand.
our epigenetics.
Yes. If you understand, right? Because it's still an area that is, being highly researched. And as we said earlier, depends on the environmental factors that you're influenced by. The genes will express that. It will manifest in your life.
And we need to give credit to the gentleman, the scientist who discovered that. His name was Gregor Johann Mendel.
Okay.
And he was the one. He's actually given the title of father of genetics.
Okay.
And DNA, we never even talked about what it meant. It's a big long word. It's DNA, which is the deoxyribonucleic acid. And that is what's being studied. It's all about the proteins and the nucleus and how the DNA is embedded in the nucleus, right? And what they have done, we talked about GMO foods as well. Do you know you can actually graft, or you can use the genomes of a tomato and a potato? They actually have this. I was surprised. They actually call it a tomato.
Who's going to eat that?
A tomato, whereas the root is a potato. But then
the fruit
through
is
the genetic engineering, we're going to see this in the market.
Who's going to eat that? That's a new.
The fruit is a tomato.
Yeah.
Right?
But the roots is a potato.
Yes, and they have rats. They can actually tinker with the genomes in a rat. They can make rats that glow in the dark.
But
Some
you
of them
see,
are like neon rats.
yeah, but you see, that's the frightening part of the science,
Yeah.
right? Because when you learn of all these things that they're tinkering with, the first thing comes to mind, well, okay, what are they trying to do to
Right.
us humans?
Hmm. Hmm.
When is this going to come to play? So we have to be very careful with what's happening. We have to be cognizant, rather,
Yeah.
of what's happening so we can make the necessary adjustments, make the changes so that our lives will not be, one that's lived in fear.
But guess what? To bring it down now to what we know, what do we get from our parents? We know we get, we all have the X and the Y chromosomes.
Yeah.
And do you know the one that's responsible for sex, whether you're going to be male or female?
The Y?
Yes. And that comes from who, mom or dad?
Mom.
From the dad.
Oh, the dad?
Yes.
Oh, yes,
So
yes,
the
yes.
dad,
Sorry.
the Y chromosomes will
Yeah.
tell you. But what else do we get from our dad? Your height, folks. If you're tall or short, you can blame your dad. If if your eye color, if you have blue eyes, brown eyes, I don't know, do people have black eyes?
Well, if you
That's
have people
all
with
from the
green
dad.
eyes,
Green
yeah,
eyes, your lips, your teeth. If you have great teeth or if you have horrible teeth,
that's your
blame
mom.
your dad.
Mom,
Dad.
mom, mom.
If you have mental disorders, blame your dad. Right? But from the mom, this is what you get. Now, the whole area of mitochondrial disease, which are chronic hereditary disorders that actually occur in the mitochondria of the DNA, it has these defects come from your mom.
Eyes for sure.
So if you have
Eyes.
aging, depending on how you age, your ability to gain weight or to lose weight, blame your mother. I always say too, the mother is the one in the kitchen more likely. So depending on the food choices she makes. So folks, if you have a problem with your weight, genetically you can blame your
What
mom.
about physical features?
Mom.
Okay.
Right. Some of them, of course.
What about things like
Your
intelligence?
So definitely.
Dad,
I'm sure my children are happy because their
dad,
intelligence comes
from their
mom.
dad.
This is the science. No, this is not the science according to Fred Cox. This is the science. I wanted to bring Gary and Mike into this just before we close off. Start with Gary. Gary, would you do, these are our producers that we rely on every single week. Gary, would you go and do the 23andMe genetic testing? Would you do the test?
I already did.
Oh, you did? Oh, wow.
I did. I
And
did one because my dad died of pancreatic cancer at a young age.
Okay.
And I have breast cancer in my family, and there's a BRCA gene, they call it.
Yes.
They look at, and we do have all those genes, but they're not active. So
Correct.
it means chances are I would not get that type of cancer.
Right. Wow.
Which means he has the lower F and the capital F.
Yeah, and they do. Whoever wrote in and said you have to talk to a genetic counselor. I got this test back when I was in the States because I'm born and raised there, as you know. And I don't know how they do it in Canada where we are, but they do have you talk to a genetic counselor first before they do any testing down there because they want to explain to you if we do find cancer-causing genes and blah blah blah. They basically don't want you to freak out.
Correct. Right.
So they.
Yeah. What about you, Mike? Did you ever would you or have you?
I've never done it myself, but I definitely would look into it. I'll have to talk to Gary more about that and see what he has to say. But it's not a bad idea, actually.
It's not a bad idea, but I am 50-50.
I'm definitely 100%.
I'm 50-50.
Yeah.
Right. And as I learn more about the technology and as I go along, I may say, okay, one day just take a risk, take the chance. And we have an email just came in from Rita, and she says, hi to all of the Liquid Green folks. Just tuned in. Nice show. I'm intrigued by your topic, and thank you very much for that. She didn't say where she was listening from, but thank you very much for that email. Now, the overall concept of, we touched on generational trauma and its potential, what it can do, what happens, what we've seen happen over the years. it is still a scientific study that's out there that still researchers are still working to gain a more comprehensive understanding of how these experiences can shape our lives. But I honestly don't think you need any more research in that. Just, let's take one group of people. Just look at the traumatic effects of the slave trade, what that has done to a group of people. There's no question that that type of treatment to a group of people has caused years and years of traumatic damage, mental, physical, economic, right? Because that DNA has been planted in our ancestors.
But we do not have to stay with it.
No,
We
no,
do
no,
not
you
have
don't.
to live with
No,
them.
you don't have to. But guess what? Unless you know, you're going to live with it. You're going to keep blaming certain situations, right? And you're not making the effort to reprogram the mind, because that's where it has to start. It has to start with a massive, massive undertaking of re-educating and reprogramming the mind.
Okay.
Right?
So we basically have 2 minutes left.
Yeah. What else you want to talk about? Like as I said, there are lots of things that we had to omit from talking about because it's a highly scientific topic.
Yeah.
And
the research is ongoing.
The research is ongoing. We're not doctors, folks, but we thought that this particular subject needs to be broached. This is a health show.
Yeah.
And some people may say, well, okay, what does it have to do with health? Now, when we choose topics, we don't just want to choose topics that are dealing with high blood pressure, diabetes. That's the run-of-the-mill thing, right? Every single thing that we do in life
affects our health
has an
some way.
effect of your health, directly or indirectly. So these are things, science, understanding the genetic code, understanding epigenetics and all those fancy words that we're coming up with. This is what we need to know and understand. So our job really is to bring it to you in the layman terms so that you can sow the seed, so you can start.
One of the words that I learned was genetic determinism.
Yes.
And I like that because that basically explained that our genes, even though they control our traits and our behaviors and our physical characteristics, yes, we cannot fight that. But what controls the fate of cells is our environment.
Yes.
So, and that's the whole thing about genetic determinism. How are our genes determined by what we do and our lifestyle?
And I'm going to add something else that what really, really determines that is how your mind has been programmed.
Yes, we agreed. We've said that. Okay. We've agreed with that. I'm not even going to say anything contrary. So I believe what you need to say further is that we need not be victims.
No.
We need not let our genes determine. We need not be victimized. Victimized, that's a new word. We need not be victimized by our genetic makeup.
Right.
Right.
So when you hear that you're genetically disposed to this disease or that condition, folks, you can change it. You can change your circumstance. So with that said, an hour was gone.
Yes.
And we are thankful for the fact that we are able to be here this evening and we can talk about things that we think are of interest to our listening audience. And so with that, folks, I would like to say thank you for taking the time, for allowing us to be as expressive as we have been. And so we'll end today's show with this quote by saying, good. You want to say something before?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's our perception, just to add to what we were saying, because I think this is really this is what we want to bring out in today's show. It was all about choice. And it is that it's our perception, right? The thing that, our perception, as you say, in the mind, it can actually change our internal biology.
Right.
By changing the internal biology, we change the chemistry.
Right.
By changing the chemistry, we change our cells. And that's why we have the choice.
Excellent.
Okay, go ahead.
And with that, folks, I would like to say good health is central to human happiness and well-being. It contributes significantly to prosperity and wealth and even economic progress. As healthy individuals, we can be more productive and may even live a little bit longer. So Until next Sunday, same time, same station. This is Janet and Fred Cox saying, let's stay healthy on Reality Radio 101. Have a wonderful week, folks.
Next week, it's Father's Day.
Thank you for listening to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts, Fred and Janet Cox, right here on Reality Radio 101.